Hello and welcome to the Inner Game of Entrepreneurship podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and I want to apologize in advance because I think some of you are going to feel like I've got my foot all on your necklace this entire episode, and that's not the intent. I'm not trying to be all up on your noggin. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about anything, ever. I am always, only, ever coming to us with so much love and so much desire for all of us to be great, be genuinely great, and to excel and exceed and to have all of the things we really want in this life. And sometimes having the things we really want in this life requires us asking ourselves some tough questions. And you may have heard me say this before, or other coaches say this before, but the quality of questions you're asking determines the quality of your life. And we're not always asking ourselves the best questions or being asked the best questions. So I'm hoping in this episode, I'm asking some of you the best possible question that you could be asked, even if it's very uncomfortable. All right, so all of those caveats aside, if you're ready for some deep questions, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with this. Imagine you had a 24-hour surveillance camera running, 24-hour surveillance footage of your daily life, and an unbiased stranger watched it. And at the end, they had to write down what they conclude you truly value based on that footage. What do you think they would write down? What habits and behaviors would they see on that footage? And based on what they saw, what kind of person would they say you are? Ooh, don't click away. If you are already ready to throw me out the window, just hang out with me. What I'm considering today is your self-image built on your real actions and habits? Or have you kind of skipped genuine evaluation of what you're doing and how you're being and settled into a story about who you are based on like who you'd like to believe you are, as opposed to how you be in your daily life? Because I think it's really easy to claim that we value certain things, right? Like maybe you say you prioritize serene mornings and a peaceful morning routine and limited screen time and getting regular exercise or eating nutritious food, or you say you value displaying strong follow through on your commitments and being a person who's really, responsible and does good work, right? But then you watch that footage. And what would you see? Would you see yourself rolling over and grabbing your phone first thing in the morning, going straight to social media and scrolling in bed before your feet hit the floor, or you take a sip of water, staying in bed so long that you don't have time to go to the gym, so the workouts get skipped for weeks, morning routines that you started and abandoned over and over, drinking coffee first thing in the morning but not eating any food until really late in the day, and your blood sugar's all shaky and crashing, and so then you order takeout and you eat junk. Or you're procrastinating on your projects and putting them off to like binge Netflix or scroll more on your phone, or you're saying yes to millions of things for other people and allowing your own projects to get pushed farther and farther back and fall by the wayside. Is the game tape matching what we're saying we value? Because a really dangerous thing can happen for us where we make a lot of justifications and allowances for ourselves. We tell ourselves a lot of stories and give ourselves a lot of reasons that let us off the hook for our moment by moment choices. And then we're creating our self-concept based on who we say we are without really being honest about who we're being. So am I evaluating who I am based on my excuses and my justifications and my reasoning and my stories? Or am I evaluating who I am based on what I do and who I be? Because who we are, is not just about the things we think and feel. It is just as much, if not more, about the things we actually do as the things we think and feel. So when we're making a lot of internal justifications about why it's okay that we're not being aligned with what we say we value, then we are just out of alignment, right? We're out of congruence. But I'm giving myself all these reasons why it's okay. Oh, I stayed up late last night. Oh, I'm really tired. Or we're not even telling ourselves the story at all. We're just, if somebody were to ask us, we'd be like, oh yeah, I totally value a morning routine. Morning routines are so important. And we're not really looking at the fact, but when was your morning routine actually is that you scroll on your phone until it's time to get up and do something. And you are missing out on doing the daily habits that make you feel your best. And this doesn't have to be related to morning routines or food or any of those things. I just picked those things as examples because they're really common ones. We want to make sure that we are in alignment, right? We feel our best as people when we're in alignment, when we're coherent between what we say we value, what we say is important to us, who we say we are, and how we're actually being in the world. We can entirely create a self-concept from stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But these stories can be wildly inaccurate, right? We could just be like, oh yeah, this is who I am, but does the footage match? If we watched the video, would we be able to tell that the things we say are important to us are being treated like they're important? Are we basing our self-concept on our intentions, our excuses, our justifications, instead of the reality of what we're actually doing? Because if we are living in a constant state of self-deception, right? What we're really talking about here is honesty, alignment, coherence, being a congruent person between your inner world and your outer reality. That's about honesty. What's that thing that they say in 12-step, right? Taking a searching and fearless moral inventory, right? Are we doing that? In other words, we have to be so fucking for real. Be so fucking for real right now with ourselves. That's why the video footage thought experiment is valuable. Because the camera doesn't pick up your thoughts, your stories, your excuses. The tape is just the tape. And what's really uncomfortable to consider is what you're doing actually is what you're valuing, right? So you might say, I value serene mornings and limited screen time, but what you actually value is excessive screen time and doom scrolling on social media. That's what you value. If it wasn't valuable to you, you wouldn't be doing it. Woo. Ooh. You say you value being a person who moves your body consistently and takes care of your body, but what you actually value is neglecting your body and living entirely in your head and allowing your body to build up feelings of stress and tightness and tension and stuckness in your joints. Ooh. If it wasn't what I valued, it wouldn't be what I was doing, right? I must value this or I'm out of alignment. Those are the only two options. I'm placing more value on the thing that I'm doing than the thing that I say I value. And we like to believe stories about ourselves that paint us as a certain kind of person, right? I'm a person who believes in social justice. I'm a person who values personal development. I'm a person who really cares about being reliable. I'm an artist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a devoted friend. We have all these identities we tell ourselves we are. But if we look at how we're spending our time, our money, and our attention, do our behaviors match up with those stories? If I say I'm an artist, okay, well, how many hours a week are you currently devoting to working on your art? If you're like, ooh, like an hour every other week, well, are you? Maybe you have skills and talents, but are you an artist? If you ain't investing no time into your art? These are things to think about. I'm a devoted friend. Cool. When was the last time you called any of your friends on the phone and checked in with them? How much time per week are you spending with your friends? When we say we value personal development, okay, how much time a week are you spending on reading books, journaling, being in therapy, working with a coach? Where are you actually putting your time, your money, and your attention? Because if you look at where you're putting your time, your money, and your attention, you're going to see what you really value. And you may see a major disconnect between who you like to say you are, the stories you like to believe about yourself that paint you as a certain kind of person, an idealized or aspirational version of self, versus who and how you're actually being. And look, maybe you were that kind of person at one point. Maybe you did used to spend an hour a day on your art. Maybe you did used to spend a lot of time checking in with your friends, right? But over time, you stopped showing up for some of these commitments in the same way, but you maintained that old self-concept even though it was no longer congruent with your behavior. Maybe you've never been that kind of person, but you always really wanted to be. But you've never built the habits that would actually align with that identity. And when we're not being brutally honest with ourselves about our habits and our behaviors, when we're not really looking at where we're spending our time, our money, and our focus and saying, does this match up with what I say is important to me? When we're saying we value things and prioritize things that we don't actually demonstrate we value and prioritize through our actions, then we are operating under the illusion that we're already embodying our ideal self, rather than clearly seeing the gap between who we think we are or who we want to be and how we're actually showing up. We don't want to live in the illusion that we're already there, right? That is not a good place to be. I don't want to be living in the illusion that I'm already embodying these traits if I'm not. I want to be real with myself because then I know what I need to grow into, what I need to change, how I need to improve in order to match up. Or maybe it's not even improvement, just where I need to shift. For instance, like right back with that idea of where we're spending our time, our money, and our attention. If I say I'm a person who really prioritizes and values, say like protecting the environment, then I would probably put in the time and the money to shop more locally, right? Shop at a farmer's market, support my local farmers, buy fewer pieces of clothing that were made more high quality and not shopping fast fashion, right? But if I'm spending my money on fast fashion and I'm buying out of season produce that was shipped from Ecuador or whatever, are my spending habits aligned with what I say is important to me? Am I literally putting my money where my mouth is? Or am I saying something's important and that I really prioritize and value it, but not demonstrating that through how I live my life? I don't want to live in illusion that I'm embodying something that I'm not. And I hope you don't either. We can really easily build an identity around believing that we're a certain kind of person, but our behaviors just don't match up. I don't want you to live in delusion. I don't want to live in delusion. We should not want to live in delusion. Living in cognitive dissonance and making excuses that soothe that friction is not great, right? Like living in an incongruous way should be uncomfortable. It should create cognitive dissonance. It should create friction. That friction's important. We need the friction. We need to feel a little bit of tension when we go, ooh, I just behaved in a way that's outside of who I say I am. That would allow us to reevaluate and change our behavior. But when we make excuses and justifications, those are like this salve that soothes and covers up that discomfort in the moment, and it allows us to stay in the discomfort or in the inaction for longer. The story lulls us into inaction. The excuses and the justification make us numb to the friction, and we need the friction. So if, as I'm saying this, you're feeling discomfort in your body, you're feeling discomfort in your mind, you're going, oh no, like, ooh, I can really see the gap in certain areas of my life between what I say is important to me and how I'm spending my time, my money, my attention. It should be uncomfortable. That discomfort is good for us, right? Contrast is good for us because the discomfort alerts us to where we need to bring our attention and where we might need to make some change. We don't want to wriggle away from the harsh light of truth. We want that. We really do. It's helpful for us. It is the best place to be. So I want to talk about why creating our self-concept from our internal narratives versus our actions is problematic for us, right? So like I just said, number one is it comforts us in inaction. Internal excuses can soothe any short-term discomfort we're having in the moment, right? The moment you decide to choose laying in bed and scrolling on social media over getting up and doing your morning routine or going to the gym, and we say, oh, it's okay. I stayed up late. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm so tired. I deserve this extra moment. That internal excuse can soothe that momentary discomfort of, oh, I'm not doing the thing I said I would do. But then it cements long-term stagnation. Each justification you accept from yourself makes it easier to do it again tomorrow and slowly slip farther and farther away from the practices that actually align you with who you say you want to be or can actually create the kind of life you want to live. The next problem is that it dilutes our self-trust. Every time we justify a behavior that is out of alignment with what we say we value, we actually erode our trust in ourselves. And over time, our word becomes meaningless. You know what it's like when someone says they're going to do something for you and they don't do it over and over and over. Do you trust that person? Do you trust the person who every time they say they're going to stop and pick up something at the store, they come home and they're like, I forgot. No, you just stop asking them. We don't want our word to become meaningless to ourselves. Our self-trust is such valuable currency. We need it for so many things, not the least of which is to be able to hear and understand our own intuition and to be able to back our own plays and to be good leaders in business and in our lives. When we don't trust ourselves, that is a really expensive thing. And when we are not our word to ourselves, we erode our self-trust more and more every day. If I say I'm going to make a commitment to myself that I'm going to lift weights 3 days a week and I don't do it, yeah, there's a consequence for my body, for my strength. For me, I'm very focused on lifting weights right now because I'm a woman in my 40s and I'm concerned about osteoporosis and bone density and stuff like that. And I want to be able to be active late in life and I don't want to like fall and break a hip, right? These are the things I think about. And so, yes, there's a toll on my body that's taken when I don't follow through on this commitment to myself. But the bigger toll is the slow erosion of my trust in my own word and my ability to follow through. That is a very expensive thing. I want to know that my word is bond, that other people can count on me and that I can count on me. And that when I make myself a promise that I'm going to do something, that I come through for me. That's a very important part of love, right? Trust is a really important part of love. I want to be a trustworthy presence to myself. The next is that it creates an identity disconnect, right? So this narrative gap starts to build. It builds this identity based on who you want to be, but not who you really are. And if you never stop to look at that, then you don't get to evaluate, why do I want to be that way? Why do I want to be that person, right? Do I want to be a certain way because I was trying to fit into a friend group at one point when I was a kid, and I thought I had to be this way to fit in? At some point was I taught I was supposed to be a certain way? Are there qualities that are part of your true personality that you've actually relegated to shadow? Traits that you have disinherited subconsciously? Like, you were taught that you're supposed to value being productive all the time and getting a lot of stuff done. But deep down, like, you're a person who genuinely enjoys relaxing and taking it easy, and you don't really care a ton about accomplishing stuff. But at some point, like, you really learned that you had to perform. I get a lot of stuff done. This is an identity disconnect. There's this gap between who you truly are, your core essence, like who you really want to be, what's really important to you in the world, and the way you think you're supposed to be, or the things you think you want to be. And if we're not honest about that, we can't be like, well, why do I think I'm supposed to be like that? Why do I want to be like that? Where did I get that from? Do I really want that? Is it really important to me? Or is it actually important to someone else and I just adopted it at some point, and that's why I'm rebelling against the behavior? This can also lead to situations where people around us get confused because how you behave contradicts how you say you are or what you say is important to you. It can lead to situations where you feel resentful of people or you get passive aggressive. If you are able to be honest with yourself about the gap between what you're saying you value or who you say you are, who you say you want to be, and what you're really doing, that honesty would allow us to be able to examine, like, why do I want to be that way in the first place? Why do I think I should be that way in the first place? And then look at what we're doing and evaluate, well, does what I'm doing actually feel more authentic to me? And I've just disowned it or told myself I'm not allowed to want this. An example, I'm not trying to be vague because this could be a lot of different things. So I want to give an example. I have known people who had what I would call a really conflicted relationship with power. And they were part of circles where the idea of power, of being in charge, of hierarchy was really frowned upon. And the language of cooperative and collective and, non-hierarchical structure was really important. And that the type of people who want to be in charge and want to be the boss are manipulative people who want to wield power unjustly, and that it's not a good thing to want to be in charge. But they, as people, actually did kind of want to be in charge. They enjoyed being in charge. They enjoyed being the boss. They really wanted things to be done a certain way. They really wanted things to be done to their standards and specifications all the time. So they would end up creating all of this friction by putting together groups and insisting that there would be no hierarchy and no leadership, but then acting like they were in charge or getting passive aggressive or, just kind of doing weird things because really they did want to be in charge and they just didn't feel comfortable saying that. And so, if that person were my client, I would be like, why do you think it's bad that you want to be in charge? What if you just let this be a hierarchical structure and just admitted that you were the boss and that these people are your employees and led them? Why would that be bad? Right? But they had internalized a lot of messages that said, it's bad for me to want that. I've worked with people who have internalized a lot of messages that it's bad for them to want attention. It's bad for them to want really to be seen, to be famous, to be in the spotlight. But a core part of their personality is that they really want to be in the spotlight. Sometimes we are trapped by other people's values in a way that makes it really difficult for us to reconcile who we truly are and what we really want. And when we're honest about these gaps between what we are doing and what we say we value, it opens up this beautiful path of inquiry about our shadow. What parts of me have I disallowed to be expressed? And maybe they actually deserve to be reclaimed, and that would relieve a lot of emotional friction in our life. So I hope that was clear and made sense. I'm not trying to get too into the weeds. But when we are doing this thing around other people where we're confusing them because how we behave contradicts how we say we are, or who we say we are, or what we say is important to us, we reduce our credibility, right? We've eroded our self-trust, and now we're reducing our credibility because other people look at your actual behaviors, not just your internal justifications. And that will impact trust in relationships. We all know what it's like to try to give someone feedback who's defensive or always has an excuse as to why they're doing the thing they're doing, or why they're messing up, or why they're missing things. And they always have some really big story. Oh, there was an accident on the freeway, that's why I'm late. And you're like, but you've been late every single time we've ever met up, right? Oh, well, my mom needed this thing, and that's why I didn't finish this thing I said I would do. Oh, I had to do XYZ. I had to blah, blah, blah. And you start to feel like, this person does not take me seriously. They don't take this thing we're doing together seriously. They don't listen. There's no point in even telling them anything because they're always going to have an excuse. We don't want to be that person for others, and we definitely don't want to be that person to ourselves. And maybe you're not that way with other people at all. Maybe you would never dream of being the constant excuse person when someone else points out an inconsistency or something you need to work on, but you are that way with yourself. So if you're doing it with others, you're damaging relationships. And even if you're not giving verbal excuses, people can see it. If they're around you long enough, they can be like, wait, you say that you really value this thing, but I see you do this other thing, and I'm confused by that. You say you value, honest and open dialogue, but I see you not express your true feelings with one of the friends in our friend group, and instead you tell everyone else how you feel, right? Like, people will see it over time, and it will reduce our credibility. People are watching and evaluating our behaviors, not our justifications. So, if you're doing it with others, you're damaging relationships. But if you're doing it with yourself, maybe you tell yourself it's not that big a deal. But really, you might be doubting your own capacity to follow through, your own capacity to be the person you say you want to be, and that damages your self-esteem. When you are not your word to yourself, when you feel like you can't rely on yourself, when you feel like you can't be trusted with your own goals and dreams, there is no way for that not to erode our self-confidence. Which leads us to the next one. Relying on our inner narrative over evaluating our true behaviors can distort our self-awareness. Your internal narratives and justifications and stories can become a delusional loop. Our justifications can create blind spots that prevent honest self-assessment, which makes genuine growth impossible. And this is happening because over time we have weakened our personal accountability. A habit of justification prevents you from truly owning your actions and your outcomes. It's a type of defensiveness, really, just like with the person who always gives excuses. Oh, I was late because of this. Oh, I was late because of that. And the other person's like, bro, you're always late. I just expect you to be late. You're just a late person. Just admit you're a late ass person. That's just who you are. It's a type of defensiveness. You're giving yourself a reason for why you are or are not doing something instead of just taking full responsibility for what you are or are not doing and being fully at cause for your own behavior. So over time, your sense of personal accountability and responsibility erodes, and that hinders your ability to meaningfully course correct or improve on anything. And over time, this undermines our ability to make real changes. Internal narrative justifications give the illusion of effort. I meant to do that. I planned to do that. I tried to do that. but it doesn't ever produce any like real world results. And so this can make us believe that we're working toward change when we aren't. I'm going to say that again. This makes us believe we're working toward change when we aren't. And that makes authentic goal setting impossible. Because without clear-eyed honesty about your actual behaviors, then your goals are set from a fantasy of who you are rather than your present capabilities and habits. If we're not being so fucking for real with ourselves about what we're doing today and the results we're creating today, then how can we set real goals for the future, and how could we ever reach them? And then when we don't reach them, are we going to have a million excuses as to why not? Are we going to blame others? Are we going to blame external circumstances because we struggle to look back and go, yeah, I didn't really do the work required to reach that goal? Or are we going to be like, well, I was doing the work, but something else was coming up. Something else was standing in the way. I was trying. Well, I really was doing everything right. Well, if you were really doing everything right, would you have reached the goal? Like, let's, again, be so fucking for real. The internal justifications make us feel temporarily okay about the gap between what we're doing and what we say we value and what we say we want our life to be like. But eventually we're going to have to reckon with the fact that our behavior creates our reality. And that's where this all gets really heavy. Maybe you've heard me say this before, or heard it said somewhere else, that if you want to see what you're truly thinking and feeling on a regular basis, you have to just look at your life. Look no further than the material conditions of your life right now. And when you look at how things are right now, the manifestations you've already manifested, your life right now is a reflection of your inner reality. It is a reflection of the thoughts you've been thinking and the things you've been feeling and your subconscious beliefs, your actions and your behaviors leading up to this moment. You are currently living in the results of your choices, behaviors, and subconscious set points. That's where the answers are. So if you don't like where you're at right now, if you are not fully satisfied, proud, happy, elated with where things are in your life right now, that's a clue of where you need to be thinking, feeling, and behaving differently so that you can create something different for yourself. The amount of money you have coming into your business right now is a result of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money leading up to this moment. How your body feels right now is a result of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around your body leading up to this moment. How your relationships are right now are the result of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around relationships leading up to this moment. And if you're a person who is constantly making excuses for your behavior, then it can be really difficult to reckon with that. Like you're in your own blind spot. So you're going to make excuses for why things are like this right now. Oh, I should have made more money this quarter, but the algorithm or this competitor or this other external thing got in my way. My relationship is like this because the other person did this thing, and that's why XYZ. It traps you in your circumstances. Excuses trap us in our circumstances. This can prevent us from being able to figure out where it's us. Like, where are you, your choices, your behaviors? Where are you the thing that's standing between you and the results you really want? Our habit of making excuses and relying on those excuses can start to create tension and disappointment and frustration as to why things feel off. And we can't find any clarity about what needs to change because we're constantly reassuring ourselves that we're doing the work, or at least like close enough, despite clear evidence to the contrary. When we allow ourselves to live in a fantasy, when you allow yourself to live in a fantasy of your current self, you actually become one of the biggest roadblocks to your own genuine transformation and growth and manifestation. Because real change starts from honest assessment and radical acceptance of your current reality. And that radical acceptance piece is really important in the book that I have coming out very soon, which I'm sure you're going to hear me talk about, The 6 Pillars of Body Love. The first pillar is radical self-acceptance. We have to start with radical self-acceptance. And I wasn't planning on going on this tangent, but I want to say this because I think sometimes, and I'm going to talk about this more in a minute, like the reason we want to make so many excuses and the reason we want to live in an illusion that we're already embodying our ideal self is because when we are more honest with ourselves, we're mean to ourselves. And the goal of this is not to be mean. The goal of this isn't to be like, oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're bad. Oh, you're fucking up. Oh, you're blah, blah, right? No, that's not the point. It's not radical self-beratement. It's radical self-acceptance. Okay, right now my morning routine is that I wake up, grab my phone and lay in bed and scroll until I absolutely have to go. And then I've missed my whole opportunity to do good things for myself in the morning. That is the truth. I'm not acknowledging that truth so I can then beat myself up and tell myself I'm bad and hurt my own feelings. I have to accept that that's the truth so that I can say, well, what would I rather do? How would I rather start my day? And so I think one of the reasons that we avoid this level of honesty is because we're mean to ourselves. We want to start with radical self-acceptance, and then the immediate companion to that is compassion, deep compassion. Okay, that's the fact. This is what I'm currently doing. Okay, I'm currently not spending my money in a way that aligns with my values. Okay. I'm not going to then use that to beat myself up and tell myself I'm a bad person for the next 6 months. I'm just going to accept that that's what's true, be compassionate about the fact that that's what's true, and start to ask myself what I want to change. Honest assessment and acceptance of our current reality is the only place that we can start to create change from. So that was a little detour. So let me get back in. If you're already convincing yourself that you are more aligned than you truly are, that robs you of the necessary friction and urgency required to make changes that could lead to real growth, right? That's what I was saying before about like trying to avoid the discomfort. We want the discomfort. We want there to be friction. We want to feel, ooh, that was a choice that is not aligned with who I want to be. And so I need to be able to feel that friction. I don't want to anesthetize myself against the friction. And if this goes on long enough, this anesthetization goes on long enough that it becomes your default, you will also condition yourself into an internal narrative of helplessness. You will start to convince yourself that you're incapable of changing things or incapable of improvement, right? Oh, it's just always like this no matter what I try. Well, did you really try? I was a personal trainer for a long time, and I would have clients who would hire me and then they would fight me every workout. They would like refuse to do things that I programmed for them to do. I experienced very strange, like I saw the depths of people's shadow behaviors around their body in doing body positive personal training. It was a big part of what led me into life coaching, NLP, learning more personal coaching tools, because a lot of the people who came to me for workout help didn't need workout help. Like that was not what was going on. And one of the things I had to realize with certain people was, oh, you don't actually want my help. You don't want to change. You want to be able to say you've tried everything and nothing worked for you. And you're using me right now as part of this narrative. You didn't really try having a personal trainer. You didn't hire a trainer and then joyfully, willingly co-create a collaborative process of changing how you work out. That's not what happened. You just paid me so that you could say, well, I tried everything and nothing worked for me. But you didn't really try. you convince yourself that nothing works for you and that it's all about these external circumstances standing in the way of you having what you want. That's really dangerous. You are robbing yourself of agency by lying to yourself in this way. Now, on your noggin long enough, one of my biggest beliefs is that there is no such thing as self-sabotage. There is only self-protection. I believe that everything we do, we're doing for a good reason. We just don't always consciously know what the reason is. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, oh shit, I'm pretty out of alignment, or I'm totally bullshitting myself a lot of the time, or like there's a lot of things I say I value that are important to me and I'm not living like they are important to me, then I want you to know that you're doing it for a reason that seems like a really good reason to your subconscious mind. You must be, or you wouldn't be doing it. And generally, people engage in this type of excuse making and self-deception because it offers emotional protection. This is a type of avoidance coping. So there's something you get out of it. So here are some options of what you might be getting out of it. If you do this, you're getting something out of it. Even if you don't like it, you're getting something out of it. So here are some of the things you might be getting out of it. The first thing is comfort in the moment. So if someone says, hey, you said you were going to do this thing and you didn't do it, or like, hey, you said you were going to be here at 5 and it's 5:30 and I'm pissed, your immediate emotion might be shame or guilt or embarrassment. And that's uncomfortable. So a very natural reflex is to give an excuse that shifts the blame away from you. There was traffic. There was an accident. Because that temporarily relieves you from those feelings. Part of that is because what you're hearing when this person says, hey, you said you were going to do this thing and you didn't, is you are bad. And no one wants to think of themselves as bad. So you're going to try to offload that responsibility and get yourself back to comfort as quickly as possible. When you're making internal excuses, you don't want to feel guilt or shame or embarrassment that you're not living up to your own standards. You don't want to shame yourself. You don't want to tell yourself you're not doing the things you said you were going to do and therefore you are bad, right? You don't want to do that. And so you're going to come up with excuses to get you out of looking at that thing because you on a certain level know that you're going to be really mean to yourself. We might need to work on your self-talk. Humans will go to great lengths to avoid shame. For real. Like, it is very uncomfortable for most of us. And culturally in the United States, we don't really have a lot of great frameworks for dealing with embarrassment, shame, guilt. So we will go to a lot of lengths to avoid shame. So it makes perfect sense that, and I don't know, maybe it's Brene Brown, but people say that like the difference between guilt and shame is like guilt is when you feel like you did something bad and shame is the feeling that you are bad. If you interpret, hey, you didn't do this thing you said you were going to do as you are bad and it makes you feel ashamed of yourself, of course you want to avoid that. That is a very logical thing. We want to be able to separate factual data, you said you were going to do this thing and you didn't do it, from I am condemning you as a human being. We always want to protect our self-worth. Everyone wants to protect their self-worth. We all want to preserve our identity to ourselves as a good, capable, conscious person. So when we maintain a narrative of intention, like I meant to or I tried to, that lets us preserve that identity. Now, the next thing you might get out of it is reduced responsibility. Excuses allow us to avoid fully owning our outcomes. Like I was saying before, oh, it's not my fault that things are like this. I'm doing everything right, so it must be some external factor. It must be something else. That lets us off the hook and prevents us from having to take potentially uncomfortable action. Like if it's all on me, then I need to do something different, and I might be scared to do that. Rationalizations of our behavior justify us staying comfortable in our current habits rather than facing the discomfort or the inconvenience of changing. We might be afraid of who we would be if we changed, or what would happen, or how we would be seen, or how our relationships would be affected, right? So if we can just stay how we are, then we can stay comfortable and we can avoid the discomfort and inconvenience of change. That's a really good reason to our subconscious mind. If we were to face the truth and get really honest with ourselves, we might realize we're out of alignment. And part of us knows that getting into alignment would require changing our habits, our routine, or our lifestyle. And that can feel intimidating and risky and uncertain. And again, humans will go really far to avoid change and uncertainty and risk. So we might just really be trying to protect ourselves from the unknown. There's part of us that's like, I don't know if I can deal with that. I don't know if I can really handle it. So it's safer to keep doing what I'm doing. There may be a fear of losing your current comforts. Maybe you really enjoy your familiar comforts and pleasures and conveniences. And part of you knows that if you started to actually live aligned with your values, you'd have to give some of those up. Ask me why I can't watch videos of cute cows. You probably already know. But I eat red meat. And if I really let myself examine how I feel about animals, I would have to make some really uncomfortable choices. I've been a vegetarian. I'm not going to go into a detour about that. But there is a way sometimes that we have to or choose to put psychological distance between what's really important to us and what we really value and how we're moving, because we know that if we really started to align with our values, we would have to give up some familiar comforts, pleasures, and conveniences. And we don't want to. So that's something to look at. Another option is that maybe you're really deeply entrenched in the survival archetype of powerless victim. A lot of the work that I do with my clients in Powerhouse Mastermind and in my one-on-one work is based on using Carolyn Miss's survival archetypes. And one of the survival archetypes that all of us have is the powerless victim. And in powerless victim, we believe that all the circumstances of our life are happening to us and they're outside of our control, and we're not trustworthy and we're not capable, and everyone is always doing stuff to us and we're not in charge. And if you're really entrenched in that archetype, that is how you keep yourself psychologically safe. Everyone has this archetype, but some people are really, really strongly identified with it. And this is something learned in childhood, and it prevents us from stepping into empowered adult accountability and sovereignty. It's totally common and it can be shifted out of, but it requires first recognition that that's what's going on. Oh, I really constantly put myself in this role of victim and I have no control and everyone else is always doing stuff to me. And recognizing that can be really uncomfortable. And then we would have to really work to change how you think and feel about yourself and how you show up in your life. So what do you do, right? How do you get out of this? I think we have to do that unflinching self-inventory, that fearless moral inventory. But maybe it's less of a moral inventory and more of a behavioral inventory. We've got to get so fucking for real with ourselves about who we're being and how we're being, and deeply interrogate if our actions are matching up to what we say we want and who we say we want to be. We have to get real about whether our current behaviors are ever going to get us the results we say we want. And if they're not, then we either have to let go of the thing we say we want, or we have to get real about change, even if it's scary. So you can start with something as simple as taking out a piece of paper or opening up your notes app and just track your actual behaviors by writing down what you're doing as you complete things, right? 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. scrolled on social media in bed. 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. rushed and panicked around my house to get ready for my first meeting of the day or to go to work. 10 p.m. till 1:30 a.m. doom scrolled on my phone while feeling a pit of anxiety in my stomach. Honestly, write it down. Then evaluate what you wrote down and see how you feel about it. We all have this, I think. I don't know if you do. I think we all do. If you have a Mac, My phone and my laptop give me a weekly analysis of my screen time. And I got to tell you that when my phone was saying, oh, on average, you spent 7.5 hours per day on this device, I was like, nope, absolutely not. This is totally out of alignment for me. This is not who I want to be. I don't want to live my life on my phone. And I went and I bought an app that blocks all the distracting apps on my phone to get my screen time down, because I cannot be who I want to be in the world and spend fucking 8 hours a day staring at my goddamn phone. I cannot do it. Like, I needed to see that number to snap myself out of it and be like, I can't be this person. And I went and got Opal. I'll put my share code for Opal in the show notes. It's $100 a year. I'm not an affiliate. It just really helps. My screen time is down to like 1.5 to 2 hours a day. Love it. I'm in the world more. But I couldn't get real about how much time I was spending on my phone and how out of alignment that was until I was really seeing the honest number. So just track what you're doing. You can start with that. Just write down what you're doing as you're doing it for a day or two. And then I want to offer you some journal prompts. I'm going to give you 5 to start with. If you're driving, come back to this later when you can write them down. Number 1, if someone watched my daily life without hearing any of my explanations for my behavior, what would they say I value? Number 2, what would my daily schedule look like if my behaviors perfectly aligned with what I say I value? Number 3, what stories or justifications do I regularly use to excuse behaviors that aren't aligned? Number 4, if I removed those justifications, how would I honestly feel about my daily habits? And number 5, what uncomfortable truth about myself am I currently avoiding by relying on my justifications? So those are 5. You can start there. And I actually created a little PDF for you that has 14 journal prompts around this that you can use to do this work if you're feeling like this is a big growth edge for you right now. So you can just go to intuitiveedgecoaching.com/actions and download the journal prompts and do them on your own. And I hope that they are helpful for you. I hope that this episode was valuable for you. I've been thinking about this one for a while and really trying to organize my thoughts around it. So I hope that I put them together in a helpful and cogent way. You are always welcome to give me feedback and let me know if it was helpful for you, if it was valuable, if it made you realize some stuff, if it gave you some new tools or new ways to think about things. I would always love to hear from you. You can DM me on Instagram at Intuitive Edge Coaching. You can shoot me a personal email, intuitiveedgecoaching@gmail.com. That goes straight to me, not to my team. And if you want help with any of this, you can work with me one-on-one. I actually have 2 spots open right now for a new one-on-one coaching program I'm calling the Powerhouse Sprint. It is a 3-month inner work coaching program. And you can apply for that by going to, it's my calendar link. I will put it in the show notes, but I'll tell you what it is. https:// that thing. Sarah Byer, that's my name, CERABYER.as.me. Sarah Byer as me. sarahbyer.as.me/Powerhouse Sprint. I'll put that link in the show notes and you can apply right there to have a call with me. So you'll be prompted to pick out a time to talk and then you can fill out a little form and it'll give you a bunch of information about the program right there on the form. And we can have a conversation about what it is that you are working on right now and how I can best support you. Like I said, I have 2 of those spots available to work with people one-on-one during Q3. So if that feels like something that would be beneficial and lifting and nourishing for you, I would love to work with you. All right, that's all I got. I thought this was going to be a really short episode and I've been talking for an hour, so I'm going to go. Okay, love you, bye. That's our episode for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. I know there are so many things that you could be doing with your day, so many things you could be listening to, and it means so much that you are here in this community. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment, share it on social media, and tag me at Intuitive Edge Coaching. Share it with a biz bestie who you think needs to hear it and will appreciate it. And take a moment to to subscribe, and to leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening. It helps me grow this show, and it helps us grow and sustain this brilliant community of entrepreneurs dedicated to doing the inner work. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, love you, bye.